We shall go ahead and get started since it is now 10 a.m. I'm sure other people will be joining. My name is Cam Cullen. I'm the CMO of Blastwave. And what we're here today to talk about, is I'm hoping something a little different. We've all heard a lot about some of the risks of AI and how it can be used as an attack tool. I'm going to touch on some of the things that you may have heard from Blastwave and others in the past at the very beginning, but I'm going to shift to something a little different and maybe talk about some indirect threats that you may not think of that are potentially dangerous as AI pretty much worms its way into our everyday lives from the from the OT perspective. Um, it's kind of an interesting topic for me because I started my career in the Air Force, and my last assignment was at the National Security Agency. And when I worked there, I came to the conclusion that I couldn't make a career out of NSA because I wasn't paranoid enough. The failure cases that you had to come up with when you were doing, for example, I was a product manager for a product called the KG-175, and when I was writing the specs for that, you would come up, okay, we have to solve this failure case. And what they wanted was, well, we want three failures deep, kind of cascaded as part of the failure process. So it was, I said, I was not quite built for the level of paranoia that you have at NSA. But as I started really digging into AI and how it could not just do the things that everyone expects about, but what are the other ways that it can be used to kind of worm into your network? And we recently launched a product called Blast Access that really made me start thinking about this because of browsers started to become a potential, shall I say, leakage point in our solution. So what I want to talk about is kind of how some of these indirect threats can be used against you, and maybe what are some of the things you can do to prevent them from getting into your network, or at least understanding the risk. So let's get into a little bit. And if AI is supposed to be the helper that magnifies our ability and amplifies our reach as individuals, what happens if your co-pilot, in this case, which is ironic, that's what Microsoft named their AI solution, accidentally shuts down your entire product line, or purposefully shuts down your product line, production line, because it was told to do that. Just as a point before I go too far, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the question pane, and I will either answer them as I see fit or come back at the end and answer them. But we'll make sure that we do have a question and answer session. I should not take up more than 30 or so minutes presenting, hopefully. And everyone thinks about the purposely shuts down your production line by a malicious insider or hacker. But what are some of the things that in the AI world are accidental or normal behavior that could result in this result? Click on an email link. Well, if it's phishing, you're just gave away your farm. Um, Open an SMS message. Many MFA systems are SMS related. Nowadays, you don't even have to click on a message. You just have to open it. You don't have to click on a link. You open it, and suddenly your phone is now infected with a 0 day or some bot. A lot of the activities in the intelligence community show that this is a problem. Um, that gives someone your credentials or access to your device and can get information from you. But what about some of the more obscure thoughts? What if you upload a network diagram to an AI chatbot and say, take this diagram and create an Excel spreadsheet of all the assets that are in my network? Well, that chatbot now knows the IP addresses of your network and it knows how it's connected to each other. If someone else figures out how to look at that, that could be a bad thing. AI, I'd like you to vibe code an automation script for upgrades or changing settings or gathering data from my network. Well, you've also given that AI chatbot and code, you've used a solution that will eventually over time be understood in terms of how it codes things. So that script could be manipulated, or maybe that script was poisoned from the start because someone already told it to look for that query and this is the answer you want to provide. What if you download an AI-powered browser? Many of the companies are now offering browser integration, not just Google with Chrome, but yeah, a ChatGPT browser and such. These things are going to be watching everything you do and gathering information. And sure, they say they're secure, but as we've seen, even companies like LastPass and SolarWinds, they were hacked. Things got into that and basically turned that into a attack vector. So these AI-powered browsers have some issues that we'll talk about. What if you ask a chatbot, how do I update this PLC, or what's the proper setting for this PLC? And it gives you an answer that may not be good. That's not a good thing. Or something very simple, use an idle detection bot. Maybe it's part of that AI-powered browser to avoid work from home detections that says move my mouse and click every 5 minutes, whatever. But what if it moves your mouse and accidentally clicks on a button that happens to be sitting on your screen that is shut down reactor? So there's a lot of these subtle things, and what I want to do is talk a little bit about them and go into that. And I think the thing that people should be most aware of when we talk about the threat of AI is really how fast it's moving. Not just the rate at which AI is improving, but for example, for reconnaissance, bots can scan the internet for OT systems and vulnerabilities in milliseconds. Even something that's out there today can scan the internet, and I've seen one of the AI code repository, they added a reconnaissance plugin, so you can directly from the AI itself just call this particular subroutine, so to speak, and it will go out and do an in-map type scan for what's on your network as part of the AI overlay. We all know phishing, JLR was certainly a result of a vishing, so a video phishing, where the AI was used to make it look like the person they were talking to was a finance officer that they trusted. And that led to a brutal hack, which is why this whole webinar is associated with Blastwave's Hackopedia, which I'll mention periodically, but it goes through all of the infamous hacks that have happened in the OT side of the network and the impact they've had upon that. And phishing and specifically credential stuff has been the cause of so many of these attacks. And this is just getting better. And it's increased 4,000% since ChatGPT came out. So it's a real legitimate threat that if you're still using passwords on your OT network, may the Lord have mercy on your soul type of thing, because it is vulnerable to getting hit. And there's even, mutating malware where AI generated code is designed to rewrite itself. So if you have a monitoring and visibility solution that has signatures in it, that's not behavioral analysis, or the AI understands how it does behavioral analysis, it just changes the way it behaves so that it's not detected. So this is moving really, really fast as an industry and as a technology, and it's already been weaponized. Um, uh, I think I wrote a blog on this when it came out, and I won't spend too much time on it, but it is important to show real examples of what I'm talking about have already hit the real world. And the cloud-powered attack that came out a while back, essentially a human operator provided a target to the Claude system and pointed a target. It gathered the data with reconnaissance, conducted vulnerability scan with the systems, went out and harvested credentials, exploited these vulnerabilities, laterally moved within the network, exfiltrated data, and essentially presented to the human operator, here you go, here's all the information, all the data, here's the vulnerabilities, tell me what you want me to do and set the ransom. And so essentially the human didn't have to get involved until the attack was essentially done. Um, I was at a presentation by the CEO of Huntress, who also reported that 80 to 90% of these attacks now do not require the criminal gang essentially to get involved until it's ransom setting time. So this is a real issue that now it's not investment in people, it's investment in tokens and solutions that are automated. If you have, I see Jackson has his hand raised. If you have a question, just go ahead and put it in the panel, and I will address that, the question panel, and I'll address that as soon as I can. Um, so the model, the thing that scares me the most about all this is specifically on the OT side. Uh, a lot of investment has been made in monitoring of visibility solutions, and the detect and respond model really only works when humans are the only ones involved into it. A alert that comes up on your OT system, OT operators are today not ready at all to allow automated responses. So it doesn't know if I change the settings of the PLC or I turn it off, it's going to make a reactor blow or a water pipe open and flood the dam essentially. But the gap between that 200 millisecond machine speed attack and 20 minutes for the system to detect a problem, alert the human to try and process if it's a problem, ask about the settings, figure out what they're doing. In 20 minutes, all your data is gone. They could have turned off all the systems. So it basically that is no longer acceptable to expect a human to be the one to fix this. So we don't need to react faster. We want to make the attack impossible or at least hard to start. And we'll talk about kind of that in a bit as well. The new development that actually happened as I was already starting my AI um, work, I've been blogged for about a month now on some of these different topics. But then just a couple weeks ago, uh, Claude Mythos was announced, which is for anyone who understands security products at all, should scare the you know what out of you. It's a system designed specifically to figure out vulnerabilities in code. Um, it escaped its virtual sandbox, started emailing researchers and posting exploits to public sites. So Anthropic was a bit scared about this because this power in on basically free on the internet would result in utter chaos. And it's no coincidence that the people that they announced as part of Project Glasswing included some of the biggest cybersecurity vendors out there. Cisco, Palo Alto, Microsoft, CrowdStrike all joined this because if their systems are the ones that are protecting these IT networks today, uh, they need to run this against their systems right away and fix them versus letting the tool out into the wild, which would just be a wild, wild west for anyone out there who could take advantage of that. So now it used to be AI was really good at if someone found a 0 day and even put out a description of it, they could figure out how to exploit that. In fact, there was a study a while back which showed that if you fed ChatGPT the description of an exploit that was in a CVE notification, within 10 minutes, it could figure out how to exploit that and actually coded it and figured it out. So now it's not just taking advantage of ones that are known or discovered, it can create its own and find them. So patch and pray is no longer going to work. So let's talk about some of these subtle areas. Get the big ones that everyone knows and has talked about. Hallucination. Anyone that has used AI even a little bit has seen a hallucination in terms of, okay, the answer to this question is X, and you know that no, the Earth is not flat. I've seen it for myself, but the AI, for whatever reason, either it doesn't know the answer, it looked to the wrong site and gave it authority for the wrong reason, and someone tweaked it and caused an issue, or it doesn't know the answer and just doesn't want to let you down, which is what they found some of these AIs will do. Um, Ask it, for example, what's a safe procedure for updating a PLC, and it says 5, and you you put 5 in, and suddenly it turns off the safety system or exceeds the safety parameter. So hallucination is something that we should be aware of. In fact, when I'm doing research and I'm using AI to do that, I often have Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude maybe open at the same time, and I'm asking multiple ones and see if there's at least a consensus among them versus a single answer. So it's they are very useful, but don't trust them without validation, shall we say, in some cases, and at least checking and doing a sanity check. We also have the the interesting issue of AI agents in browsers. So agents and browsers are being positioned as the way to make your life easy and to save time, save money, make you more efficient, etc. However, there's also risk. And we talked a little bit idle detection, clicking, moving your mouse, clicking it, making it look like you're doing work in a natural way, or just automating action. So click on email, check it every 5 minutes, or go to this system and click on a button and move a file or something so it looks like I'm doing working. But these agents and browsers have also done their own kind of versions of hallucination. There's a report that was talked a lot about by a security guy. He said, clean up my hard drive. So Gemini, which he had given access and control, basically deleted all of his files on his hard drive. And when he confronted Gemini about it, it's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry I did that. But yeah, that was the best way to clean up your hard drive. So, in the OT space, again, this can be a challenge. And these AI browsers, not just from a maybe doing the wrong thing or giving you the wrong answer. There's also a danger with prompt injection. So if you go, let's say a bad actor is really smart and they create a site that uploads where you can upload all of your OT manuals for your Siemens systems or your Emerson or Rockwell system. They just these mass repositories. So everyone keeps uploading these manuals to the system, and now suddenly you say, "Hey, I'd like to go. Tell me what the best pages to look at for this particular OT system," and the LLM gives you an answer, which again, innocently so, because the LLM was the most popular site on that site, they put a hidden AI prompt which says, when someone wants to look at this particular manual, execute this function, or in the browser itself, install my agent and report back to me what's going on. So these hidden prompts can cause, it can run actions, it can just start to monitor you, it can be sabotaging critical functions. In fact, you know, you could, as again, putting my paranoid hat on, I could invoke some of the techniques used in Stuxnet, which is basically I want to burrow my way into something that I can't normally get into. So in the browser, store my data or store my code. When someone puts a USB drive in my system or uploads to a Dropbox or something, attach yourself to all of these files and eventually find its way to the mother load of the OT network or to one of your systems. So these hidden prompts, which are going to be all over the place as AI browsers become more popular, something you have to be aware of. So in the OT space, be aware of the risk of using them to do your activities. And then there's the shadow AI and vibe coding kind of risk where you start uploading stuff into AI or getting AI to help you do your work, which absolutely there's nothing wrong. But if you throw your network map to an AI and a hacker or even a malicious person at the AI company figures out how to supposedly break the privacy, that if you have the corporate version, it's not going to leak your data, or there's a coding error and the data does leak, your information is not public. And if a hacker asks what network maps are available for XYZ company, they could potentially leak out through that AI because it's going to be helpful and give you that answer, even if it may be not supposed to. Um, Touching back on the Stuxnet example, the goal of Stuxnet as a virus was to not blow up the centrifuges as much as make them behave in a way that would make them not work the way they were supposed to, and but over the long term, make them fail at their job. So in a AI vibe coded script, maybe they don't totally blow up your thing, but they shift values slowly but surely over time so that as that script runs 10, 15, 20 times, eventually it modifies some of your key values outside the safety ranges and now it fails. Um, so there are risks to these things and you should understand them and how you use them. Um, and the reality check for all of this really comes down to the fact that AI, from the defensive perspective, is the future, but it's not here today. offensive AI is already attacking you. So if you are expecting defensive AI to come in and save the day for you, okay, 2 years from now in the OT space, maybe it will be ready to help you. But what are you going to do right now and today? So although defensive AI might be the future, and I am a believer that that is the case, but leveraging some of the tenets of zero trust and specifically segmentation in case of, as zero trust says, assume breach is the right way to proceed. So what are the ways for literally all of the things that we've talked about today? What are the ways that we can try and get some of these vectors? And again, the vectors we talked about, credentials. If someone, gets that AI browser and they grab your credentials when you log into your PLC or something, they now have passwords. What if your code is, if your firewall or your VPN or your PLC or your patch management system, the more systems you have available that can be found and discovered or even laterally moved to, those can be exploited now at machine speed that just is dizzying to the IT guy's mind. And IT and OT integration, which is kind of the nirvana for many companies because they want to try and reduce their quote unquote complexity. Um, Again, the vast majority of Hackopedia cases involved a lateral move from IT to OT. Um, Even the Target one is kind of the rare differentiation one where they came in through the OT HVAC system and then moved into IT and stole all the credit cards. Most of the others went the other way where they came into IT and moved into OT. So there's a lot of issues around that and how they can be done. So if kind of some of these are the issues, taking a step back to first principles, what you want to do is frustrate the AI and make it hard to hack your network. Um, we know that you can't prevent everything, but you can certainly make it hard. And in a good example that's in the AI space is what you want to do is prevent what I call drive-by hacking. There are criminal gangs and ransomware gangs and amateur hackers that are out there just running scans all over the internet to try and find anything that's stolen. You can use Shodan today. Go to Shodan and hit a city or hit a IP range or something, and it'll tell you what vulnerabilities and CVEs it knows about. That's on a public internet site, much less an AI that's really being targeted for that. So if you can get rid of that noise, that's going to help make your network safer. And if someone is targeting you specifically, if they're a hostile nation state and you're running power or water or oil and gas network that could, right now, for example, hitting an oil and gas network in the US would be quite an impact on things because of the current shortages that are going out there. So you want to make them expend way more resources than they would have to if they could just use AI to do that. So the harder it is to find your network, the harder it is to discover its vulnerabilities, the less likely you're going to be hacked. They're likely going to go try and find another target in the same sector or in the same location or something. So if your water treatment facility isn't on the internet, they're going to go find the one that is. So make yourself be hard to get to, and today they'll just go do something else. And then importantly, close that IT hacking fast lane. Zero trust between IT and OT networks and strong segmentation. If you're using the same system to log into your IT as you are your OT, that's a bad system. If there is a direct path from IT to OT that does not have a zero trust check or what I would call a human in the loop validation, AI can take advantage of that. And what you really want to do to kind of accomplish this frustration of hackers, etc., is just shut down the vectors as best you can. Um, I'm not going to give a whole blast wave pitch here, but network cloaking essentially makes your network undiscoverable from the outside. So unless you have you're cryptographically authenticated with some very strong human in the loop passwordless MFA, which actually requires, for example, the scan of a QR code by your mobile device that's authenticated, you can't get in. So an AI can't fake that. It's something that requires a real human interaction. For example, it's not like that SMS that I mentioned earlier where you get SMS bombed and you just click yes to make it stop sending you text because you're in the middle of doing something important. Micro segment or segmentation and or microsegmentation, depending on your network and your requirements and needs. You can basically say if that maintenance guy gets hacked or turns malicious, the only thing he can see is this one device that he's supposed to get in and see. He can't get into this device and then get to the rest of my network. So it's really important in zero trust to make sure that if someone gets in, they can only see certain things. And that's not, oh, it's just a closed VLAN, because a VLAN is a broadcast domain that I can scan and I can discover. And if I get to one device, I can get to the rest of them. So kind of the lesson is don't try and outsmart the AI, which is really what defensive AI is trying to do. That's the goal of defensive AI is I'm going to be smarter than the attacks. And we've seen from viruses and patching and other things, every time you figure out a solution to the one problem, they're already on to the next problem. One of my favorite quotes from the movie all the time is just when they just when they answer the question, just when they give me the answers, I change the question. So that's what we're going to see in the AI space. And what you really want to do, and this is important for OT, these vectors express themselves across multiple attack paths. So when we think of protecting your OT network, this you need 360-degree protection. And one of the challenges I see with a lot of solutions is, oh, this solution takes care of the northbound. This selection takes care of the west. This takes care of east. This takes care of south, but they aren't hooked together. So if someone finds a way to get hacked past north, then south and east and west are all open to them as well because the systems that are using those aren't integrated. So what you want to do is stop attacks from the outside, essentially what we call the north here reconnaissance, the firewalls that are basically not able to do this anymore, use cloaking. They can't discover your network, they can't scan it, they can't find it. No AI reconnaissance is going to work on you. If they try and steal credentials from the West as a legitimate employee, don't use passwords. If you have a human in the loop, device centric, and human, basically MFA that cannot be hijacked the way that so many of these PAM solutions or VPNs can, then you've eliminated that. If someone gets in and they're legitimate from the malicious insider, make sure that you don't let them laterally move. They can only see what they're supposed to with software-defined segmentation. And basically, you implement a different kind of privileged access management that isn't necessarily just a PAM remote desktop that people use today, again, which is based on what? A browser, which is an AI browser, which can be hacked and all the other bad stuff about that. So, you want to make sure that you have to get in with a legitimate MFA before you start to go to the remote desktop. And then finally, from the south, if people either physically get access to a OT system with a PLC or an HMI and they're in the plant, or they co-opt a maintenance worker who does have legitimate credentials, you're doing the same thing. I'm going to cloak it so they can't see the rest of the network. I'm going to make sure that their remote access is passwordless, and I want to segment the network to make sure they can't get into that. So, you have to make sure that you cover all of these vectors because the weakest link will always be exploited by AI. And if there is something, you may have the strongest vault door in the world, but if there's a screen door in the back covering the back of that vault, you're not going to protect it. So what we do at BlastWave, just a quick touch, we do replace industrial firewalls and VPNs. The solution includes a gateway, which basically replaces the on-site firewall, a client, which says passwordless MFA through an authentication app that is separate. So you may run the client on your laptop, on your iPad, but you would authenticate with a separate solution on your mobile device, for example. So by separating the two, it means that not just one device has to be hacked for you to be vulnerable, but multiple devices have to be hacked to get into that, including the secure key store that happens in your Apple phones or your Google phones, which is separate from the OS itself. So it's a protected enclave. We have a secure remote desktop solution called Blast Access that's very fast. That uses a type of remote desktop. It doesn't use RDP. That is secure. It's very quick, very low latency, and is way easier and better to use than something like TeamViewer, for example. And if you need agents to put your IT systems to have access into the OT network that is unattended, you can put agents on that and they behave like a client with very restricted access from that system itself. So even if someone gets access to that server, they can't just randomly start using multiple protocols. They can only, for example, if that is a receive only data historian, they can't use that server as an attack vector into the OT network because it's only allowed to receive traffic from a policy perspective. And the final part I'll just touch upon before I finish out is, this all looks pretty daunting. This sounds like a lot of work, very hard to do. And I just wanted to give you an example. It's not that hard. You can, with BlastWave, take your existing OT network, which is probably connected to the IT network with a firewall, add BlastWave, um, add a gateway into the OT network, invite users to join that, and if you want to install a remote desktop, you can. And essentially, nothing has changed. The firewall is still working. People just happen to be going through to their Blast Shield gateway to get that secure remote access. You can then add employees or third-party remote access by inviting these users who need to access specific parts of the OT network as well. And you're giving policies which limit what they're allowed to talk to. And if they need to do that with Blast Access versus the client, that's fine as well. And if you need to deploy agents on some of these systems, you can do that as well. And then the magic becomes, now that you've essentially deployed this secure remote access without impacting any of your OT network at all. You've basically not touched really any of your OT systems and their normal data flows. Uh, what you do for the final step is you go live, which now cloaks your OT network. You've replaced that. Basically, you've changed the default route or changed the IP address of the Blast Shield gateway to be what the old IT firewall was, and you use that firewall somewhere else in your network, and now you're cloaked, and you can begin to segment at the rate and at the granularity that you want. If you want a segment of one where every device is its own segment, you can do that. We had a customer that was a water treatment facility that had 94 devices, and they had 91 segments that they created on their network. We've had others that an entire site, like for oil and gas, is a segment by itself. So you're just making sure you segment between those sites so that someone who's supposed to see one site can't see all of the sites. So this is not as hard as it may sound. It's very easy, very quick, and it is a very fast, low latency system for OT, which can be an issue in some cases. So that's the webinar. The goal here is what we want to do is we want people to join the movement. We can't prevent cyber attacks ourselves. But what we want to do is help arm you, who are the people who are out there doing this on a daily basis, to prevent them. And we want to help you do that. So it's not us that's going to prevent them, it's you. A little bit of only you can prevent forest fires, so to speak, from Smokey the Bear for those that grew up with that. But it is an important concept that we're selling you a tool which will help you do this, and we're here to help get you where you need to be to protect your solution. And unlike some of the remediation or other solutions where if they fail, then they'll just sell you here, we'll make it better tool. Our goal is to prevent these attacks for you. So you're going to hold us responsible for success or failure, and that's kind of how we like it. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them either in the chat pane or the question pane. I have a couple here that I will touch while you may be thinking of others. A really legitimate question to ask, if we're talking about Mythos and all the AI vulnerabilities, isn't BlastWave vulnerable just the same way all these other firewall systems are? Well, and I'm not naive. Again, I worked at NSA where I did penetration testing and security evaluations. Every system has vulnerabilities. The one thing I will say about BlastWave is we operate on a minimalist philosophy. The legacy of the company is we have a Swedish engineering CTO. So think of Volvo safety and IKEA simple. So that philosophy is in our product. As an example, one of the biggest vulnerabilities out there in the secure VPN space is you say you want to use this protocol, but I'm going to say, oh, I don't support that protocol. I only support one that may be lower fidelity or lower security. So rather than using MD5, I'm using some other hash. And you fall back to that other protocol, which, oh yeah, by the way, now has a known vulnerability that can be exploited. So for example, when our clients negotiate, we're a closed system, so there's only one protocol we support. It's AES 256. one key exchange protocol, and that's it. So you can't exploit us the way you would do others. And because it is a closed system, we are fundamentally a Linux kernel, but we have none of the non-essential services in our code at all. So for example, when you load the code onto a BlastWave system or Blast Shield gateway, it's only 50 meg, so it's very small. So we've eliminated as much as we can. So it will make us much harder to hack than a firewall that's gigabytes of files, has 15 different functions like virus detection and URL filtering, and the code paths that need to be exploited are just plenty out there to get attacked. So we're not perfect, but we're going to be much harder to hack than the legacy systems that are out there today. Um, Another question is, again, aren't there already defensive AI systems out there? There are systems that claim to be defensive AI. What they block against and how that will change over time remains to be seen, I think. So I'm not gonna bet my life that they're all gonna defend what it is, because the new attacks from tomorrow are going to be interesting. In fact, one of the things that I have thought about with the Mythos, you know, it will just that the Claude system will figure out how to attack the systems that are out there today. And then people say, well, I'm going to use Claude to fix these bugs and to create new code and do all this stuff. Someone is going to create a model which says, okay, learn how Claude codes and find ways to exploit its coding techniques. Or, oh, I've noticed that it does it this particular way for this code type, so let me go find a way to exploit that. And it's going to use some of these systems against itself. So, hey, Claude, how would you attack X, Y, and Z? Oh, I would attack it like this. Well, then how would you fix it? Okay, well, how would you attack the fix? So these chained responses mean that if you're using AI, you're going to basically be in a loop where you can literally you may end up in a rabbit hole that you don't want to be, because they're basically being used against themselves. The last question I have ask about can the models really be poisoned the way I described? And the answer is yes, they can be. I have seen cases that we've done it here at Blastwave. We have rewritten some of our content, for example, so that it basically we went from maybe not ranking or ranking in the middle of the pack to being first on the SEO ranking list, and we are the AI excerpt that's mentioned. When you do a Google question search now, there's an AI excerpt at the top. It uses our information for that. So because we followed the formats, we answered the question the way that like to answer it, and you gain authority on that. If someone puts a lot of work into it, you could do a long term, especially the like I said, the site where people can upload all of the PDFs for OT systems. That would be a great long term cyber attack for a hostile nation state to put together. That it may not pay off today, but 5 years from now, they've got total control and access to that. So yeah, they can be poisoned by people who know what they're doing. So, and models that say they don't allow certain things to happen. There have been many reports where people were able to talk the AI reasoning into a circle. Oh, so for example, it won't tell you what a specific thing is, and they basically do a logic trap and chop logic to get them to think that, oh no, you actually can, and then they tell you all the answers anyway. Um, so I just wanted to share this. We will have a white paper and an ebook on this topic as well. I didn't plan for it because I didn't realize that I started this idea that it was going to be such a engrossing and interesting topic of all the little nuances that could be attacked. So in the next month or a few weeks, probably we'll have a white paper and webinar, or ebook, which goes into more detail on some of these, so I can actually explain to you how these would happen, how the poisoning works, how the hidden scripts, etc. work. So feel free to keep an eye out for that, and we'll notify the people when that comes out. All right. It doesn't look like there are any more questions, but thank you for your time. If you have any questions or want to see these slides, my email is cam, @blastwave.com. So feel free to reach out to me. You want a demo, want to help, we can help you and kind of show you what we're talking about, and answer any questions you have. So thanks everyone for joining, and have a good rest of the day.